Alrighty, y'all. Welcome to Ellis Mowers. We're on part one of this Troy Bilt Pony. I'm sure it's going to be multiple parts with everything that we got to do with it. Doesn't look much, but I don't think it's going to take too much. This is your standard, I buy it at Lowe's and cut grass with it lawnmower. It's nothing crazy. It is a 17.5 horsepower Briggs. Doesn't have a gas tank, but I got a gas tank for it, so I'm not worried about that. This engine I have already tried. Will start and run on starting fluid. There's an obvious reason why it's not running any more than that, because this is the carburetor situation on it. I've got a carburetor coming, and we'll put it on as soon as it gets here. I think this engine is going to run really well. I believe the transaxle is good, and I believe the deck is good. Spindles just need to be freed up some, but obviously we'll take the deck off and see how it is. Probably going to need a little bit of work on it, just judging by the fact that the pulley and whatnot for the belt is missing. It's got something in the back here, a little bit of damage on the discharge chute, no biggie. Again, this lawnmower is never going to be perfect by any means. The one big issue is that it has the chronic steering problem with it. As you can see, I don't think that inflating the tires is going to do anything to solve that, so we will get that fixed. I looked on a couple of videos, and it looks like all it is just a little bitty bushing that gets worn out. Or it could be the steering gear, I don't know. We'll have to look at it. Because let me show you, I can jack it up. I'll get the tripod. I can jack it up and turn it, but it still pops a little bit. So we'll check the condition of that bushing. So let's see, it'll turn right. Will it turn right? Yeah. It just gets stuck. Right there on a couple of teeth. So I don't know if those teeth are bad or if it's the actual steering bushing that's gone bad on it. There's a little bit of play in it. So that's going to be my main cause of concern for this thing. What I'm going to do is I'll set y'all on a tripod. We're going to get the deck off of it. It should be just a nice little simple 3-point pull it out type deal here. So I'm hoping that that's all that it is. I'll keep it jacked up in the front just to help me out. But it should just be, it's got pins in it. That makes it a little bit more difficult. But it's a pin right there that holds up this arm. It is a pin on this side that holds that up, which it looks like they've put some sort of nail in there. And then just a little mounting portion on the front here, which whenever you get the pins out, you can just slide it forward, slide it up, and then you just slide it out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the deck off of it. We'll look under it, and we'll see how the steering gear bolt looks. Probably going to end up having to replace that. I got 2 that I need to get, I believe. Or I've got one back here. I could see if the steering shaft on it works better. But I believe it is missing a couple of things. I'm not completely sure. This is a mower I was going to save, but I don't know if I will or not. Because this is missing, actually. Like, I can pull the steering out of it actually. So I don't know if I'll just put this wheel on it and call it a day or what. But we'll see. I'll let y'all know what I end up doing here in just a second. Alright, I got the deck off. Here's the condition of the deck. It's not terrible. It's not the best. But it's very, very usable. It has the typical issue of a crack right here on the back of the deck, right here where the back mounting bracket is. That's pretty typical. Another thing that's pretty typical is a little bit of rot right here. That's pretty typical. The blades, actually, I don't even have to touch the blades. The blades are in very good shape. And the rest of the deck is okay, except for those two small spots. That spot right there, and then obviously where the crack is, back there on the back, where it mounts, mounts at the rear of the mower. I've fixed one of them before. Not really too concerned about that. It had a secondary spring on it, which kept the blade brakes off of it. The blade brake on the right is relatively seized, although I got it to where I think it'll function okay. And then the blade brake on the left, I'll have to see. I don't want to mess up the I'll have to take that blade brake off at the very least. See if I can get it fixed. But the one on the left works fine. So I've at least got one blade brake on it. Let me show you what's under the deck, or what's under the mower here. The drive belts are not the best, I hate to say. But it's one of these terrible MTD Veridrive transmissions. So I don't even know if I want to even try and tackle fixing it. As you can see, that drive belt is cracked to pieces. And I don't think I have one here. But we'll see if it drives on its own. If it does, I mean, I don't know. I don't really like doing Veridrive transmissions. What I'm doing now, this is one screw. Basically, it holds on the entire steering assembly. Taking the screw off, and in theory, I should be able to take this wheel off relatively easily. All I should have to do is pull it up now, because I don't think there's anything else holding it. Yeah, there we go. So, as you can see, it's got a little bit of wallowing out there on it. I believe that is probably my issue. So, in the very least, I need to order one of these nuts. I just have to go source it. Probably I'm just going to put MTD or Troy Bilt Pony steering nut in. It'll probably give me it. A little bit worn out though, as you can see, especially on this side. And even a small wallowing out like that will cause issues like that. This one is no better, so I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to order one of them steering nuts, so to speak. So I'll probably leave this aside until that steering nut comes in. Or I might just attach it back real quick, because it was relatively loose. So I wonder if I tighten it up a little bit, that if I could get a little bit more leverage out of it. Not too sure actually, so let's just see. That washer was sitting on top, so I suspect that it went on top of everything here, just to settle it. So I'm going to put it back on. I'm going to tighten that screw up with an impact, that little Phillips screw that I took off, and we'll see how everything does. If I just simply tighten it up, if it'll make it a little bit better or not, I don't know. But we'll find out here in just a second. Alright, let me show you on this Troy Bilt. It looks like this thing's been a fire victim at some point, because there's spots that are burned on the throttle. Luckily the intake tube is okay, but you can see where some of the stuff right here was burned out of the air filter and bubbling up right there on the plastic. So somebody probably tried to start this thing with either, and had a backfire on it. I have figured out that this lawnmower will turn over and will run on starting fluid, so we're a decent amount of the way there already. There's 7/16 right here for the intake tube, and there's also 8mm deep wells that you got to take out on these carburetors. Trying to find my 1/4-inch ratchet. I got everything straight all everywhere right now. I don't know where it is. I'll just use my 3/8 for the time being. Oh, I used it on some battery cables. Just a second. There it is. All right, now I got it. Forgot I'd used it on some battery cables. Just taking this intake tube off. Put the extension on. Intake tube is nasty. Woo. Alright, it comes off your little pipe there. And then get your 8mm deep well. .5/16 also works. And I'd find a choke arm for this, which I've got plenty of them here, so I'm not worried about them or worried about that. Alright, it's off. Let me get the new carburetor and a choke arm, and we'll put that on as well. Alright y'all, new carburetor. Usually I get it for the 31,000 series, like 31N 707 or something like that. usually works pretty well. Just pop it on. And the fire damage doesn't concern me really at all, actually. It looks like it's just confined to where somebody tried to use starting fluid and didn't have success using it. So spring got kind of mixed up when I did that. See, I can fix that real quick. There we go. Oh yeah. Bend it back a little bit. Put the gasket on there. And I'll also find me a choke arm. Conveniently had, oh, didn't sit in the chair right, sorry. Conveniently had me one. I just flat out missed the chair. That's kind of embarrassing. I just put that choke arm on, pop it in there, get the gasket out. It's right here. Put my little bolts back in. Threads. Okay, we'll tighten that down with an 8mm and 8mm, and so everything should be working like it's supposed to now. Choke, obviously, you see is working. I'm going to wait to put the intake tube on it. I will go ahead and connect the anti-backfire. And next order of business, I've got to put a fuel tank on it. I can just mock it up right there for right now. It's one of them stupid zip tie ones. So I don't have to put a zip tie or something on it in order to make it work. I don't know why MTD ever did that. It's the dumbest design ever. But I gotta grab some fuel line, which I've actually got some right here. Probably get me to the point. Well, I got to put a fuel filter and a shut-off switch on it too. Usually these fuel tank nipples are pretty large. So let me grab some pliers. Put the fuel line on. The clamps, that is. Clamps. Okay. So now I'm going to cut off a little bit, about right here. I'm going to put the shut-off switch right there, and then put the fuel filter, and then the remainder. So I'll do that off camera. I'll put gas in it and put a battery in it, and we will see if this thing fires up for us and stays running. It should. There's no reason why it shouldn't. Alrighty, y'all, I got it. Got the fuel line finished. Batteries in it. So hopefully this thing is gonna start up for us. I want to also put gas in it. Well, it's gonna make a liar out of me because it worked. Everything worked on it earlier. And make sure that this isn't causing any sort of short. No, I might have a dead battery, y'all. I'll have to see. Let me check voltage in the battery, which kind of sucks. This is a brand new battery. Unless the starter solenoid decided it wanted to go out while it was waiting. It's getting 12.7 volts at the battery, so something's not right about it. Let me figure it out real quick. Just very interesting because I was able to turn it over and kick it over earlier, and now I can't even get it to go. I don't think those connections are bad. I just think that I've either got a bad ground or solenoid or something along those lines. Let me investigate a little bit further. I don't think it's a safety because it tried to crank a couple of times. It's like it's not getting enough voltage. Let me put some different bolts in there for the terminals for the battery and see if that helps any, since those are rusted out. Alright, y'all, it's just bad battery connections, so let me show you. See if it cranks for us. Gotta push this pedal down for some reason. Runs good. Let it loosen itself and we'll see if we'll go forward and backward. See what it'll do. Alright, that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Again, I don't know how bad that belt's worn under there, but I just know it's a pain in the rear to change MTD belts. So I'm going to see how it drives. Obviously, I'm going to give it a good cut before I send this thing off. All that's left for me to do now is to put the engine cover and stuff back on. I will change the oil and whatnot in it as well. I'll end part one here since we got it running. That was pretty easy. Part two, the deck's in here. I've got everything straight about because I'm in the process of doing that engine transplant as well. So I got all kinds of stuff all straight all over everywhere. Should get better within the next day or two in here. But the deck on part two, we're going to weld right here at the back. We're going to weld that back together. Very, very common issue on these Troy Bilts. I've took the blade brake that was frozen up. I took the arm off of it, so it's no longer going to be in use. However, the one on the left will still work. I don't want to be breaking blade engage cables and stuff. The deck belt seems to be good on it, which is good. And what I'll do off camera here is I've also got to put tire tubes in the front two tires. The rear tires actually will hold some air, I think. At least this right rear one will. The left rear one I probably just need to pump back up. Like I said, it's not too bad. These old MTDs aren't too bad as long as you don't have any trans issues. They're pretty simplistic otherwise. But it runs with the new carburetor, which I figured it would, which is great. That's always half the battle, to get it running, and then from there you can just kind of work, so to speak, on a couple of other things. So part 2, we're going to come up, we're going to do some deck work to it. We're going to hopefully get it cutting, and once we do both of those, we'll give it a nice little wash and hopefully send it to a new home. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I don't have to worry about replacing them drive belts. That one in the front's really cracked, but the lawnmower is driving, so again, it's just like replacing belts on an MTD Veradrive transaxle is just a pain, and it's almost not even worth it with my experiences. So anyways, I'll catch you on part 2. You can catch me at, excuse me, I thought I had to sneeze, Ellis Mowers 09 on Instagram and Facebook. I'll show you everything that I've been working on with real-time updates. You can catch me right here on YouTube. We have a steering tractor and we have a running tractor, and it'll move forwards and backwards, so we're getting there. See you next time. Alright, y'all, what I ended up doing is I've got the tires up with some tubes in it. Started up, drove it around. I'll exhibit what it's doing, and it's obviously because of the worn out drive belts on it, and just cracked and all that. Let me show you them one more time. I'm gonna have to replace them. I figured I would anyways, but one thing, it's got a dead spot in it. It's loose and stretched out, so what it's doing, and you know, $20 in peace of mind is well worth doing that for. But let me crank it up for you. So we'll go in reverse and forward. As you can see, I got it in second and it's hardly doing anything. And you put it in forward. Well, it tries. There we go. Knock it down into second and it loses its luster, so you got to roll it about third. I got the steering on it fixed though. Steering's good. And part of it is, that's exciting. Part of it is this tire's flat, which doesn't help matters. But like I said, it's losing its luster going up hills and stuff in second gear. So I got to put the intake cover and stuff back on it. Thing loves to backfire for some reason. I'm going to put the deck on it, air up this tire, and I'm going to put all the decorative covers and stuff back on it just so that I can get all that out of my garage, because I'm not going to have to do anything on the bottom end of this engine anymore. So that's, you know, one less thing in my garage. Put the deck on it just to, I want to see if it cuts, because I want to see if it's even, you know, it only takes 10 minutes to put on and take off a deck. I want to see if it cuts, number one, and number two, if it does, then that'll warrant me putting on, fixing the deck here, and also putting a new drive belts on it. And then after we do that, this mower should be pretty well sorted. Shouldn't really have anything else going on with it, hopefully. So let me go ahead and put the deck back on it. Again, it's just 3 mounting points, and I'm going to pop it back on. And oh, I see what it was doing. It was trying to buckle up over that mount there, so I have to fix that real quick. I'm going to put the deck on it and see if number one, it cuts, and if it does, you know, how well it does, and then we'll take it back off to put drive belts on and weld it. It doesn't sound like a lot of work, but in the evening, when it gets to be in the evening here, it seems like it's a little tiresome, especially after I've had a little bit of bad luck on another mower today. 2 deliveries and a couple other things, so a lot going on, but we about got this thing sorted out, and I'll be looking forward to when I do. One thing I wanted to make note of before I put this back together was that this mower actually had, or this deck had, a missing spring on it. I think somebody had put a spring on it that would work. I can't find it, but I've put a replacement OE spring on it, so at least I've got one blade brake that works. This one right here was frozen, and so I just kind of bent it out of the way. I don't think it'll really make that much of a difference. Hopefully it doesn't jump off of the belt. If it does, we'll revisit it, but I'm going to go ahead and put it back on. This way the cable will pull it back and the spring will retract it like it should, and we'll be in good shape. So let me get the deck on, and we'll test out, see if this thing will cut for us. Alright, I got the deck on. Seems the belt is a tad loose, probably just from age, but we'll see how it does. I guess there's the only way to find out is to run it, right? See what happens. Let's see if it comes off. Stayed on. I'll tell you what, let's take it for a ride down the driveway, why don't we? got one headlight that works. How about that? The other one's missing. Let's see if it backfires when I turn it off. No backfire that time. That's good. I think with some more run time, that backfire will go away. And also with the air filter cover and stuff on it. So we're running and cutting. That's better than many after I finish part 1 of a video. I tell you one thing, that brake is very far. Of course, this seat is adjusted as far back as it'll go, which doesn't help me since I'm only 5'7". But the VariDrive works great. Or it works. With new belts, it will work great. So $20 for the belts. And hopefully it won't be too much trouble to change them out. I've got to raise the deck up on the front. We'll address that in part 2. Really the only thing you have to do that, I believe, is just to put that nut in right there on the front, and then I have to level it side to side. So this one's running and cutting. That's good, and we'll address the other issues in part 2. Also, obviously, I got to weld that back portion of the deck, which isn't that bad. Raise the front of the deck, put drive belts on it, and clean it up, and I think we'll be good. So I appreciate y'all watching this part 1. We'll catch up on part 2 when I get those issues fixed, and whatever else issues might arise. I'm pleased to see the deck belts not jumping off and things like that. So I just got to take the deck back off of it to replace the drive belts on it. And after I replace the drive belts on it, fix the deck, clean it up, we'll be good. I'll catch you on part 2, and you can catch me at Ellis Mowers 09 on Instagram and Facebook for any sort of real-time updates of what I'm working on right now. See you then.